Lieutenant Tai-Ho Kim stood at the viewing port of the Earth Coalition vessel Pathfinder *. His dark eyes took in the massive space station ahead. Nexus Station looked like a giant metal flower with many petals, each housing different alien species. First time seeing the Galactic Council headquarters, Captain Han asked, stepping beside him. Tai-Ho nodded. Yes, sir. It's bigger than I imagined. Humans have waited 50 years for this invitation, Captain Han said. Don't mess it up. Tai-Ho smiled. He was one of 12 humans chosen to meet the Galactic Council. His job was to show that humans could be trusted, despite coming from what aliens called a Class 12 Deathworld. The Pathfinder docked at Nexus Station with a soft thud. As the airlock opened, Tai-Ho noticed the change in air. It was cleaner, with a slight sweet smell. Atmosphere adjusted for human comfort, said a soft voice from hidden speakers. Please proceed to decontamination. The human delegation walked through glowing blue light. On the other side, a group of aliens waited. Tai-Ho had studied alien species for years, but seeing them in person was different. The lead alien stepped forward. It had light blue skin, 4 arms, and large eyes that blinked sideways. Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Loon of the Galactic Council. Captain Han bowed slightly. Thank you for inviting us, Ambassador. We are honored. As they walked through the station, Tai-Ho noticed many aliens stopping to stare at them. Some moved away quickly. Others whispered to each other. They seem afraid of us, Tai-Ho whispered to Dr. Juri Park, the team's scientist. Juri nodded. We're from a planet they consider extremely dangerous. To them, we're like people who grew up inside an active volcano. They entered a large room with a round table. Representatives from 12 alien species sat waiting. Tai-Ho noticed they all had thin bodies and delicate movements. Ambassador Loon spoke. The Galactic Council welcomes Earth's representatives. For many cycles, we watched your planet from afar. We did not think intelligent life could evolve on such a hostile world. Captain Han smiled. Earth is home to us. We find it quite pleasant. One alien with red scales and no visible eyes made a sound like hissing steam. Your gravity is crushing, your atmosphere toxic, your temperature swings deadly, your weather violent, and your wildlife aggressive. Yet you call this pleasant. Tai-Ho stepped forward. What is normal to one species may seem extreme to another. We evolved to thrive in Earth's conditions. Indeed, said Ambassador Loon, which is why many council members have concerns. Humans have evolved as apex predators in conditions no council species could survive without technology. Your strength, endurance, and resilience are concerning. We come in peace, Captain Han said. We wish to learn and share knowledge. Another alien, tall with gray skin, spoke. The Verdani Confederation disagrees. Humans are too dangerous to join the galactic community. We propose Earth be quarantined. The room filled with murmurs. Tai-Ho felt his heart sink. He caught Juri's eye, and she looked worried too. Ambassador Loon raised 2 of his 4 hands. No decisions will be made today. Our human guests need rest after their journey. We will continue discussions tomorrow. As they were led to their quarters, Tai-Ho noticed the chairs, beds, and facilities were much softer than human standard. Everything seemed fragile. They think we're monsters, Juri said quietly in their common room. Then we'll show them we're not, Tai-Ho replied. Humans have survived worse than alien prejudice. That night, Tai-Ho looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the planet that had shaped his species. The planet other species called a Deathworld. You call Earth dangerous, he whispered to himself with a small smile. That's adorable. The next morning, Tai-Ho woke early. The bed was too soft, making his back hurt. He found Juri in the common room, looking at data on her tablet. Did you sleep? He asked. She shook her head. Too excited. I've been studying the station's database. Look at this. She showed him a chart comparing different planets. Earth was marked in red at the far end. They've rated all known planets, she explained. Class 1 is most comfortable for most species. Earth is Class 12, the most extreme. What makes Earth so dangerous to them? Tahoe asked. Everything. Our gravity is crushing. Our oxygen levels are toxic to many species. Our temperature range is wildly unstable. Even our bacteria scare them. Tahoe laughed. No wonder they look at us like we're monsters. A soft chime sounded, and Ambassador Loon's voice came through the speakers. Human delegates, please join us in the council chamber. The council chamber was larger today, with more aliens watching from raised seats. Captain Han led the human team to their table. Tahoe noticed the seats were reinforced, unlike yesterday. Ambassador Loon spoke first. Today we will hear concerns about human membership in the council. The red-scaled alien stood. I am Representative Sick of the Melokai Union. Humans evolved on a planet that would kill most of us in minutes. Their bones are dense like stone. Their muscles are powerful. They can survive injuries that would be fatal to us. They eat plants and animals that contain toxins. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Another alien with feathers stood. Humans can survive for days without water. They can go weeks without food. Their bodies repair damage quickly. They can run long distances without rest. These are traits of apex predators. The tall gray alien from yesterday spoke next. I am Ambassador Vrel of the Verdani Confederation. We propose that humans be studied from a safe distance. Allowing them into the greater galaxy is too risky. Ju Rai leaned toward Captain Han. May I speak? He nodded. Ju Rai stood, her movements careful and slow. I am Dr. Ju Rai Park, xenobiologist. Yes, humans evolved on what you call a harsh world. But that shaped us in ways beyond physical strength. We learned to cooperate. We developed empathy. We built societies based on helping each other survive. She pointed to her tablet. Your own records show that Earth has more biodiversity than most planets. Life on Earth doesn't just survive, it thrives. It adapts. That's what humans do best. We adapt. Ambassador Vrel's voice was cold. Predators adapt too. That doesn't make them safe. Tahoe felt anger rise in his chest. He stood, remembering to move slowly. With respect, Ambassador, you're judging us by your standards. On Earth, we have a saying, don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Some aliens looked confused, but others nodded. You see our strength as threatening, Tahoe continued. We see it as necessary for our world. You fear our adaptability. We celebrate it. How can we build understanding if you've already decided we're dangerous? An older human diplomat, Du Hyun Choi, placed a hand on Tahoe's arm. Tahoe sat down, worried he'd spoken too boldly. Ambassador Loon seemed thoughtful. Perhaps we need a different approach. Words alone cannot resolve these concerns. A small green alien with large eyes spoke up. I suggest a practical assessment. Let humans demonstrate their capabilities in a controlled environment. Ambassador Vrel looked unhappy. What do you propose? A survival challenge, the green alien said. On Nexus 9, a Class 4 world. Let humans and representatives from other species participate together. We will observe how they approach challenges. Tahoe and Ju Rai exchanged looks. Class 4 would be mild compared to Earth. Ambassador Loon nodded. A fair proposal. Will the humans accept this challenge? Captain Han conferred briefly with his team, then stood. We accept. Lieutenant Kim and Dr. Park will represent Earth. As the council session ended, Du Hyun pulled Tahoe and Ju Rai aside. Be careful, he whispered. This isn't just a test. It's a trap. They want to prove humans are dangerous. Then we'll prove them wrong, Ju Rai said confidently. Tahoe nodded, but his stomach tightened with worry. Let's hope this challenge doesn't turn into a disaster. 3 days later, Tahoe and Ju Rai stood in the preparation room. They were given simple clothes, water bottles, and basic tools. This is all we get? Taiho asked, looking at the small backpack. The blue-skinned technician nodded. The council says humans need less equipment to make the test fair. Juri checked her pack. Knife, fire starter, water filter, and a small medical kit. Not much, but we can work with it. The door opened, and 3 aliens entered. They would join Taiho and Juri on the challenge. I am Sal of the Trellin Science Academy, said the small green alien with large eyes who had suggested the challenge. I look forward to observing human adaptability firsthand. A tall, thin alien with purple skin bowed slightly. Miri of the Valen Collective. I am a survival specialist. Despite her words, she looked nervous. The third alien had a shell-like back and 6 limbs. Crete, environmental engineer. His voice came from a small device on his chest. Unlike the humans, each alien wore a full environmental suit with blinking monitors. They're dressed for a spacewalk, and we have camping clothes, Taiho whispered to Juri. She nodded. Remember, what's normal for us is extreme for them. Do-hyun entered the room, his face serious. The council asked me to explain the rules. You'll be dropped on Nexus 9 for 7 days. You must reach the extraction point 50 kilometers away. Your progress will be monitored, but no assistance will be provided unless life-threatening danger occurs. He looked directly at Taiho and Juri. Remember what I told you. This is as much a political test as a survival one. Be careful how you display your abilities. The ship to Nexus 9 was small but comfortable. During the 6-hour journey, Juri studied information about their destination. Nexus 9 has 0.9 Earth gravity, so slightly lighter than we're used to, she told Taiho. Oxygen levels are similar to Earth's. Temperature ranges from 10 to 25 degrees Celsius. The main challenges are daily acid rain and some nocturnal predators. Taiho raised his eyebrows. That sounds like a pleasant camping trip. For us, yes. For them, it's a nightmare. Look at this. She showed him the aliens' briefing. It called Nexus 9, a hostile environment with extreme conditions. When they landed, Taiho understood why. The others stepped out cautiously, their suits beeping with warnings. Gravity levels higher than recommended, Miri's suit announced. Exercise caution during movement. Taiho looked around. They stood in a beautiful valley with purple grass-like plants and orange trees. A lake sparkled nearby under 2 small suns. The air felt fresh and cool. This is pleasant, Juri said, taking a deep breath. Zal turned to her, eyes wide. You're breathing the raw air, without filtration. It's safe for humans, she explained. Our analysis shows no harmful toxins. Remarkable, Zal said, making notes on a device. We should move, Crete said. Weather scans show acid precipitation in 4 hours. They began walking toward the extraction point. The aliens moved slowly, struggling with the gravity. After an hour, they needed to rest. Taiho and Juri weren't even breathing hard. Are you not fatigued? Miri asked, watching them. Not really, Taiho answered honestly. This gravity is lighter than Earth's. As they rested, Juri examined the local plants. These are similar to ferns on Earth, but with chemical compounds I don't recognize. Zal moved closer, curious. You can identify biological structures visually. Basic ones, yes. It's part of our training. The group continued through the valley. By late afternoon, dark clouds gathered overhead. Acid storm approaching, Crete announced. We need shelter immediately. Taiho spotted a rock formation nearby. There, we can use those rocks for cover. As they hurried toward the rocks, Taiho noticed the aliens' increasing panic. To them, this beautiful world was a dangerous place. To him and Juri, it felt like a park. 30 minutes until precipitation, Crete's suit warned. We need to prepare, Taiho said, looking at Juri. ready to show them what humans can do. She nodded, pulling out her knife. Let's build a shelter they won't forget. 20 minutes until acid rain, Crete's suit announced. The alien's 6 limbs moved nervously. Tai-Ho surveyed the rock formation. We need branches to make a roof. Juri pointed to the orange trees. Those look sturdy. Zal's eyes widened. You can't approach those. They might have toxins. Tai-Ho smiled. I'll be careful. He jogged to the trees and examined the branches. They bent but didn't break easily. Perfect. I need to cut some branches, he called back. Anyone have a better tool than my knife? The aliens looked at each other. Miri stepped forward and pulled a laser cutter from her pack. This will work, but the branches are too high to reach. Tai-Ho looked up. The lowest branches were about 3 meters high. Without thinking, he jumped, grabbed a branch, and pulled himself up into the tree. He heard gasps from below. Such strength, Zal whispered, recording everything. And agility, Miri added, sounding impressed. Tai-Ho took the laser cutter and began slicing branches. He tossed them down to Juri, who arranged them on the ground. 15 minutes until acid rain, Crete's suit warned. Working quickly, Tai-Ho cut 20 large branches before jumping down. The impact would have been nothing on Earth, but in the lighter gravity of Nexus 9, he landed extra softly. Now we need to create a frame, Juri said. She began arranging the largest branches against the rock wall, forming a sloped roof. The aliens watched in silence as Tai-Ho and Juri worked together. They moved faster than the aliens could, their bodies strong and sure in movements that would exhaust the others. Can you help us weave these smaller branches together? Juri asked Miri and Crete. They stepped forward hesitantly. Their environmental suits made their movements clumsy, but they followed Juri's instructions. 5 minutes until acid rain, Crete's suit announced. We need something waterproof for the top layer, Tai-Ho said, looking around. Zal opened his pack. I have an emergency shelter sheet. Will this help? The material was thin but strong. Tai-Ho nodded. Perfect. They spread the sheet over the woven branches and secured it with rocks and more branches. Just as they finished, the first drops of rain began to fall. Everyone inside, Tai-Ho called. They crowded under the shelter. The space was tight, but they all fit. Outside, the rain hissed as it hit the ground. Small holes appeared in the purple grass where the acid droplets landed. The shelter is holding, Juri said, watching the sheet above them. A few drops leaked through, but most of the rain ran down the slope and away from them. Remarkable construction, Zal said, and built in just 15 minutes. Miri looked at Tai-Ho with new respect. On my world, this would require special equipment and hours of work. On Earth, we call this camping, Tai-Ho said with a smile. Children learn to build shelters like this. The aliens exchanged shocked glances. As they waited out the rain, Juri asked about their worlds. Zal's planet had no weather changes and constant temperature. Miri came from a low-gravity world where physical labor was rare. Crete's species lived in underground cities to avoid surface conditions. No wonder they think Earth is a death world, Tai-Ho thought. The rain lasted 2 hours. When it stopped, Crete's sensors tested the outside air. Acid levels dissipating. Safe to exit shelter in 5 minutes. Tai-Ho stretched his legs. Sitting still for so long had been the hardest part for him. We should cover about 10 more kilometers before dark, he suggested. 10 kilometers. Crete's translator couldn't hide his shock. After building a shelter and sitting for 2 hours. Is that too much? Juri asked, genuinely concerned. We can go slower. Miri adjusted her suit settings. Humans truly are remarkable. On my world, we would rest for the remainder of the day after such exertion. As they packed up and continued their journey, Tai-Ho noticed the aliens watching him and Juri closely. Their fear was being replaced by curiosity and something else. Admiration. The suns began to set, painting the sky with red and purple lights. In the distance, strange calls echoed across the valley. Nocturnal predators. Crete said, his voice anxious. We should make camp and set up defenses. Taiho listened to the calls. They sound far away. But yes, let's find a good spot for the night. As darkness fell, he realized this was only the beginning of their journey. The real challenges and opportunities to change alien minds about humans were still ahead. The group found a small cave for the night. The entrance was narrow, which made it easier to defend. We should make a fire, Taiho said, gathering dry plants. Miri looked confused. Why create a heat source? Our suits regulate temperature. Fire keeps predators away, Juri explained. It also provides light and can be used for cooking. Zal moved closer, curious. Your species regularly uses controlled combustion in survival situations. Yes, humans have used fire for thousands of years, Juri said. It's one of our first technologies. Taiho arranged the dry plants and used his fire starter. Sparks flew, and soon a small flame appeared. He added more materials until they had a good fire burning at the cave entrance. The orange glow lit up their faces. The aliens watched the flames with a mix of fear and wonder. On my world, fire is considered extremely dangerous, Crete said. We avoid it at all costs. Fire is dangerous, Taiho agreed, but it's also useful if you know how to control it. As night fell completely, the temperature dropped to about 10 degrees Celsius. The aliens adjusted their suits for warmth. Taiho and Juri sat close to the fire, comfortable in their basic clothing. Strange calls echoed in the darkness. Something large moved in the trees nearby. The aliens tensed. Predator approaching, Miri's suit announced. Recommend immediate shelter. Taiho picked up a burning branch from the fire. Stay behind me. A creature emerged from the darkness. It looked like a mix between a wolf and a lizard, with scales and fur. Its 6 eyes glowed in the firelight. It growled, showing sharp teeth. Zal made a small frightened sound. Crete moved deeper into the cave. The creature took a step forward. Taiho waved the burning branch and shouted loudly. The creature hesitated, then backed away and disappeared into the night. Remarkable, Zal whispered. You faced a predator without weapons. Fire is a weapon, Taiho said, and predators usually avoid humans unless they're desperate or threatened. Juri nodded. On Earth, we grew up alongside predators much larger and more dangerous than that one. They set up a watch rotation. Taiho took the first shift, then Juri. The aliens were supposed to take turns after, but they slept poorly in the harsh conditions. Taiho ended up taking another shift so they could rest. In the morning, the 2 suns rose, bathing the landscape in golden light. Juri walked around the cave entrance, studying plants. I think these are edible, she said, holding purple berries. How can you tell without testing equipment? Miri asked. Juri explained. They're similar to berries on Earth. No spines, no unusual smell. Birds have been eating them. I'll try one first to be sure. You'll consume unknown alien plant matter. Zal was shocked. Without analysis. Humans can taste small amounts of potentially toxic substances without harm, Juri said. She put a berry in her mouth, chewed slowly, then spit it out. Sweet, but with a bitter aftertaste. Probably safe in small amounts. The aliens watched in amazement as she demonstrated basic survival skills that were common knowledge on Earth, but seemed like superpowers to them. After a small breakfast, they continued their journey. The terrain became rockier, with steep hills and small streams. The aliens struggled with the uneven ground and needed frequent rests. By midday, they reached a wide river blocking their path. The current looked strong, and the water was deep. We need to find another way, Crete said. My species cannot swim. Mine can swim, Miri said, but not in currents this strong. Taiho looked up and down the river. There's no bridge and going around could take days. We need to build a raft, Juri suggested. We can cut trees and lash them together. Like we did with the shelter. Sal asked, already taking notes. Tai-Ho nodded. Yes, but bigger and stronger. It will take most of the day. As they began gathering materials, Tai-Ho noticed the aliens were watching him and Juri with new eyes. The fear was gone now. Instead, they looked at the humans with respect and wonder. In the Galactic Council chamber, hundreds of aliens watched the video feed. The humans were not just surviving. They were thriving in conditions the Council considered challenging. Perhaps, Ambassador Loon said quietly, we have underestimated these humans. By sunset, the raft was ready. They had tied logs together with strong vines and built a raised platform in the center to keep their supplies dry. We'll cross in the morning, Tai-Ho said. River crossings are safer in daylight. That night, as they sat around the fire, Sal asked questions about Earth. Tell me about the worst weather on your planet, he said. Tai-Ho thought for a moment. We have storms called hurricanes that can flatten entire cities, winds over 300 kilometers per hour, rain that floods everything. And tornadoes, Juri added, spinning wind funnels that can pick up cars. The aliens looked horrified. How do you survive such conditions? Miri asked. We build stronger buildings. We create warning systems. We adapt, Juri said simply. Crete's suit suddenly beeped loudly. Alert. Seismic activity detected. The ground began to shake. Small rocks fell from the hills around them. Earthquake, Tai-Ho shouted. Everyone away from the cave and trees. They ran to an open area as the shaking grew stronger. The aliens moved slowly in their suits, struggling to keep balance. Tai-Ho helped Crete, whose 6 limbs made him wobble more. Juri guided Stal, who had frozen in fear. A loud crack split the air. The ground near the river began to break apart. Water rushed into the new cracks, and their raft was swept away. The raft, Miri cried. Forget the raft, Tai-Ho said. We need to reach higher ground. The earthquake lasted 2 minutes. When it stopped, the landscape had changed. New hills had formed. The river now flowed in a different direction. Their cave had collapsed. Is everyone okay? Juri asked, checking each alien for injuries. Sal's suit had a tear in one arm. Crete had fallen and damaged his breathing filter. Miri seemed unhurt but was shaking with fear. This wasn't part of the challenge parameters, Sal said, his voice trembling. The council wouldn't include real danger. Tai-Ho looked around at the changed landscape. I don't think this was planned. This is a real emergency. Juri checked their supplies. Most had been in the cave and were now buried. They had lost their communication device, most of their food, and their water purifier. We need to contact the council for extraction, Miri said, tapping her suit controls. No signal. The earthquake must have damaged the relay stations. Crete's breathing was becoming labored as his damaged filter struggled to work. Without proper equipment, I cannot survive more than 2 days in this atmosphere. The situation had turned from a simple test to a life-threatening crisis. Tai-Ho saw fear in the alien's eyes. Listen to me, he said firmly. We're going to survive this. On Earth, we train for unexpected disasters. What can we do? Sal asked desperately. We're stranded. Juri pulled out her tablet, which still worked. According to the map, there's an emergency beacon about 30 kilometers from here. If we can reach it, we can call for help. 30 kilometers. Through this terrain. Impossible. Crete wheezed. Tai-Ho knelt beside Crete. First, we need to fix your filter. Juri, can you help? Juri examined the damaged filter. I need something thin but strong to patch the crack. And something sticky. Tai-Ho searched the remaining supplies. He found a flexible leaf and some tree sap that felt sticky to the touch. Will these work? He asked. Juri nodded. Working carefully, She used the sap to stick the leaf over the crack in Crete's filter. This is temporary, but it should help. Crete's breathing eased slightly. Thank you, he said. Now we need water, Taiho said. Without the purifier, I'll have to filter it manually. How? Miri asked. Watch and learn, Taiho replied with a smile. He gathered sand, charcoal from their fire, and layers of cloth from his pack. As the aliens watched, Taiho built a simple water filter. He poured river water through it, catching the cleaner water at the bottom. Not perfect, but it will keep us alive, he said, handing each of them a drink. Night was falling again. They made a small camp with what remained of their supplies. Tomorrow, we head for the emergency beacon, Taiho said. It will be a difficult journey, but we'll make it together. As the aliens huddled near the fire, Juri sat beside Taiho. This isn't a test anymore, she whispered. We're responsible for their lives now. Taiho nodded, looking at the stars. Then we'll show them what humans do best. Overcome impossible odds. Morning came with new challenges. The landscape had changed completely. Hills blocked their path. The river had formed a new lake. Strange animals had appeared, displaced by the earthquake. We need to go around the lake, Taiho said, studying Juri's tablet map. It will add 5 kilometers to our journey. I cannot walk 35 kilometers, Crete said, his breathing still labored despite the patch on his filter. Taiho thought for a moment. Then we'll carry you when you need rest. Carry me. Crete's translator couldn't hide his shock. I weigh nearly 80 kilograms in this gravity. That's not heavy for humans, Juri said. We can take turns. As they set off, the aliens moved slowly. The earthquake had made the ground uneven. Their environmental suits were not designed for long hikes over rough terrain. By midday, they had covered only 5 kilometers. At this rate, it will take 6 days to reach the beacon, Miri said, voice filled with worry. Crete doesn't have that much time. Taiho nodded. We need to move faster. He knelt in front of Crete. Climb on my back. Crete hesitated, then awkwardly positioned himself on Taiho's back. Taiho stood, adjusting to the weight, and began walking. This is remarkable, Izal said, recording everything. The human is carrying another being while walking over difficult terrain. On Earth, parents carry children like this all the time, Juri explained. It's normal. They maintained a faster pace with Taiho carrying Crete. By evening, they had covered another 10 kilometers. As they set up camp, Miri approached Taiho. How do you do it? Carry such weight for hours without complaint. Taiho smiled. Human bodies are built to endure. Our ancestors had to travel long distances carrying supplies, children, even injured tribe members. Without technology, she asked. Most of human history was without advanced technology, Juri said. We relied on our bodies and simple tools. That night, Taiho took first watch. The strange animals made noises in the darkness, but none approached their fire. When it was Juri's turn to watch, Taiho tried to sleep, but something bothered him. He sat up. It's too quiet, he whispered to Juri. She nodded. The animals stopped making sounds 10 minutes ago. Suddenly, the ground shook again. Not as strong as before, but enough to wake the aliens. Aftershock, Taiho explained. Common after large earthquakes. The shaking stopped after 30 seconds. Everyone seemed okay, but Sal's tablet beeped with a warning. Acid rain coming, he said, but much stronger than normal. Nearly 3 times the acidity. Taiho looked around. There were no caves or rock formations nearby, just a few scattered trees. We need to build a shelter fast, he said. Juri, help me cut branches. They worked quickly, building a frame from branches and covering it with leaves. But the shelter wasn't strong enough for the coming storm. It won't hold against high acid rain, Juri said, worried. Miri opened her pack. I have an emergency tent fabric. It's small, but acid resistant. That will work for the roof, Taiho said. We can use our clothes to fill gaps in the walls. Jurai looked surprised. Our clothes? But then we'll have no protection. Taiho shrugged. Humans can survive exposure better than our friends. Their suits will protect them, but they need the shelter more than we do. As the first acid drops fell, they finished the shelter. The aliens crowded inside. Taiho and Jurai gave up their jackets to cover holes in the walls, leaving themselves in thin shirts. A few acid drops hit Taiho's arm, causing small red marks. Jurai got some on her hand. They both ignored the pain and kept working to make the shelter secure. From inside, Zal watched in amazement. You're allowing your skin to be damaged to protect us. It's just a mild chemical burn, Jurai said. It will heal. When the shelter was secure, they squeezed inside. The space was tight, but they all fit. Outside, the acid rain fell heavily, sizzling when it hit the ground. How can you endure pain so easily? Crete asked, noticing the burns on their skin. Pain is part of life on Earth, Taiho said simply. We learn to work through it. As the storm raged outside, something changed in how the aliens looked at the humans. The fear was completely gone now. In its place was something new, deep respect. The acid rain continued through the night. By morning, the landscape had changed again. The purple plants were gone, dissolved by the strong acid. Small pools of bubbling liquid dotted the ground. The path ahead looks dangerous, Miri said, checking her suit sensors. Acid levels are still high in some areas. Taiho examined the burns on his arms. They were painful but not serious. Jurai had applied some medicinal leaves to help them heal. We need to reach higher ground, Taiho said. The acid will flow downhill. Zal had been quiet since the night before. Now he approached the humans. I've been thinking about something. May I ask a personal question? Of course, Jurai replied. On your world, helping others at your own expense, is this common? Jurai nodded. Yes, humans often help each other, even strangers. But why? From an evolutionary perspective, it seems counterproductive. Taiho smiled. Actually, it's the opposite. Humans survived on Earth because we worked together. One person alone would die quickly on our world. As they carefully picked their way through the acid pools, Zal continued asking questions. He seemed genuinely interested in understanding humans now, not just studying them. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a valley. In the distance, about 10 kilometers away, they could see a small metal structure, the emergency beacon. We're getting close, Taiho said with relief. Suddenly, Crete's suit beeped loudly. Filter failure imminent. Oxygen levels critical. His patch is dissolving from the acid exposure, Jurai said, examining the leaf they had used to repair his filter. We need to replace it. With what? Miri asked, looking around at the barren landscape. Taiho thought quickly. We could tear a piece from someone's clothing, but the acid might damage it too quickly. Jurai opened her small medical kit. I have a synthetic bandage. It might work, but it's my last one. Use it, Taiho said. We're close enough to the beacon now. As Jurai worked on Crete's filter, a loud roar echoed across the valley. They all looked up to see a large creature climbing the ridge toward them. It resembled a bear with scales and had long claws that dug into the rock. Predator approaching. Miri's suit warned. Extreme danger. The creature charged toward them. It moved faster than they could run, especially with Crete weakened by his breathing problems. Get behind me, Taiho shouted, picking up a large rock. No, Fehel said, stepping forward with a small device. I have a sonic repeller. It chilled. Before Zal could finish, the creature swiped at him with its massive claws. The blow sent Zal flying backward. He landed hard, his environmental suit torn open across the chest. Zal. Jurai ran to him while Taiho faced the creature. The animal roared again and charged. Tai-Ho waited until the last moment, then dodged to the side. As the creature passed, he brought the rock down hard on its head. The animal stumbled but didn't fall. Mary fired her emergency flare at the creature. The bright light and noise confused it momentarily. Tai-Ho used this chance to attack again, striking the animal's sensitive nose. The creature howled in pain, then turned and ran away. Tai-Ho hurried to where Juri was tending to Xal. The alien's breathing was shallow, and strange blue liquid seeped from a wound on his chest. His atmosphere regulator is damaged, Juri said, and he's losing blood. Without hesitation, Tai-Ho tore a strip from his own shirt and handed it to Juri. Use this to stop the bleeding. But your burns, Miri began. Will heal, Tai-Ho finished. Xal needs help now. As Juri worked to save Tal, the alien scientist looked up at the humans with new understanding. I was wrong about your species, he whispered. We called you aggressive because you evolved on a dangerous world. But that same world taught you something else. Compassion. You fight fiercely, but you fight to protect. Tai-Ho helped Xal to his feet once Juri had stabilized him. That's what humans do. We survive together, or not at all. Crete, his breathing easier with the new filter patch, nodded slowly. I think I finally understand. Your strength comes not just from your bodies, but from how you use that strength. The emergency beacon was now clearly visible below them. Just a few more hours, and they would reach safety. Let's go home, Tai-Ho said. The emergency beacon stood in a small clearing. It was a simple metal tower with a control panel at its base. Tai-Ho helped Saul walk the final distance, while Juri supported Crete. We made it, Miri said, her voice filled with relief. Tai-Ho activated the beacon. A red light on top began to pulse, sending a signal to the Galactic Council. Help should arrive within hours, he said. They made a small camp beside the beacon. As they waited, Saul's condition stabilized. His suit had emergency medical functions that finally kicked in, helping him heal. I've been thinking, Saul said, looking at Tai-Ho and Juri. The Council was wrong about humans. We saw your physical abilities as a threat. We didn't understand what shaped those abilities. Juri smiled. Earth is harsh, but it's also beautiful. It taught humans to be strong and adaptable, but also to work together. In my research, Sal continued, I've never seen a species that combines such physical capability with such social cooperation. It's unique. A distant hum grew louder. They looked up to see a ship descending from the clouds. Rescue had arrived. As medical teams rushed out to help them, Tai-Ho noticed something interesting. The rescue workers treated him and Juri with careful respect, not fear. 3 days later, Tai-Ho and Juri stood before the Galactic Council again. The great chamber was packed with aliens eager to hear about their experience. Ambassador Loon addressed the council. We have reviewed all data from the survival challenge. What began as a test became a real emergency due to unexpected seismic activity. The humans not only survived but ensured the safety of all participants. Zal, now recovered, stepped forward. As a scientist, I went to observe humans as specimens. I returned with friends. These humans risked their lives to save mine. They endured pain and hardship without complaint. They showed intelligence, adaptability, and most importantly, compassion. Miri spoke next. On my world, we avoid physical exertion. We use technology for everything. Seeing humans use their natural abilities to overcome challenges has changed my understanding of what bodies can do. Crete's translator voiced his thoughts. The humans could have reached the beacon much faster alone. Instead, they carried me when I could not walk. They gave up their clothing to shelter us. They put our needs before their own. The council chamber was silent as the aliens considered these words. Ambassador Vrel of the Verdani Confederation, who had been most opposed to humans, spoke. I still have concerns. Humans are physically powerful. Their history shows conflict. Can we trust them? Do-hyun Choi, the veteran human diplomat, stepped forward. Ambassador, humans don't deny our capacity for conflict. Earth's harshness taught us to fight when necessary. But the same conditions taught us that cooperation leads to better survival than competition. Ambassador Loon nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps we have been looking at humans through the wrong lens. We saw their physical traits as threats. We should have seen them as adaptations, tools that can be used for good or ill, depending on the heart that guides them. After hours of discussion, the Council voted. Earth would be welcomed into the galactic community. As celebrations began, Taiho found himself beside Tal and Juri, watching aliens from dozens of worlds mingling with the human delegation. What happens now? Sal asked. Cultural exchange, Juri said. We have much to learn from each other. And much to teach, Taiho added. 6 months later, Taiho stood in the arrival area of Nexus Station. The first official alien tourist group was preparing to visit Earth. They looked nervous in their heavy-duty environmental suits. Lieutenant Kim, one called. Is Earth truly as dangerous as they say? Will we be safe? Taiho smiled. Earth has its challenges, but you'll be perfectly fine with proper guidance. And you'll see things of beauty you never imagined. What should we try first when we arrive? Another asked. Food, Taiho replied with a grin. Earth has thousands of different cuisines. Is Earth food safe for non-humans? The alien asked worriedly. Taiho laughed. You call our world dangerous? That's adorable. Wait until you try our spicy food. That's where the real adventure begins. As they boarded the ship to Earth, Taiho realized that bridges were being built between worlds that once feared each other. Humans had found their place among the stars not despite coming from a Deathworld, but because of it. Earth's challenges had prepared humanity not just to survive, but to help others thrive.